Julius.
Thanks, Kelsey, and what a privilege to be on such an interesting and fascinating panel. I'm working in an amazing country, if you're interested in the power of youth, but also if you're interested in understanding the lack of the power of youth. Somalia is a young country. 70% of the population is under the age of 30, and it's a society that's very strongly shaped by age-based power structures, where young people are systematically excluded from decision-making, from opportunities, and from accessing their rights. Young people in Somalia are quite generally described at least by politicians and traditional leaders, clan elders, etc., as inexperienced, and oftentimes ridiculed for that when trying to bring innovation and challenge the status quo. I've spoken with a few youth-led organizations ahead of this event to try to understand what challenges they face as they interact with institutions and as they try to create change in their local communities. What you need to understand, I think, is that the experiences and perceptions of young people and their role in society in Somalia, that they're very gendered. So young men in Somalia are oftentimes perceived as violent by politicians, as troublemakers, and ascribed an unfair level of negative agency, while young women are oftentimes described as passive victims of violence or discrimination and ascribed no agency at all. And these biased assumptions and stereotypes are, of course, quite negative to the agency and the role of young people in shaping Somali society. And the stereotypes seep into policymaking at every single level and lead to young people being excluded from both identifying the problem and indeed contributing to the solution, at least in the institutional setting. In Somalia, as a youth majority country, investing in young people is always investing in peace. The fact is that when you exclude young people from being part of shaping the institutions and rebuilding the state after many decades of conflict, you're missing out on a huge wealth of knowledge, of expertise, and a very connected generation. So I want to just bring your attention to two examples of how young people engage as agents filling the gaps when institutions fail. One is in the lower Shabelle region, where young people support community dispute resolution mechanisms. These areas were recently recovered from Al-Shabaab control, terror group in Somalia, and so informal mechanisms are needed, and some of these mechanisms are supported and led by young people. And another example is intra-clan violence in the town of Abudwak, where young people trained young mediators or dialogue facilitators after two young men were killed in intra-clan violence. They brought together the community for a peace walk through the streets, which gathered people from all sides of the conflict. And I think the strength of young people's involvement is that they're unbiased by the historic fragmentations and biases of the conflict of Somalia. And they often constitute the social glue. Their organizations constitute the social glue of the local community. They act as a counterforce to malign powers such as the Al-Shabaab, not for the reason of preventing violent extremism, because that's not always what young people try to do, but because either they simply have to, it's their community and they care about it, or because they care about the safety and future of their country and their friends. These are some of the challenges that young people encounter and some of the ways that they approach their role locally. And I think what I can do is shed light on three items that institutions can pay attention to reshape the way you work with young people. At least this is how the UN in Somalia is approaching it. And I think you'll find similarities with how municipalities can work with these issues? Well, first of all, you need to be introspective. Look internally into your own structures and into your own ways of working. Check your narrative. What biased assumptions do you have about young people? What ways of working are you using to include young people in your processes internally, to support young people, to partner with young people? The second item I would suggest is be deliberate, be strategic. Don't just include young people to check the box, but ask yourself, how will we do this? And what's our level of ambition? What resources are we allocating? And involve young people in that process. Ask young people how they want to be engaged. And lastly, invest in youth-led organizations, youth-led solutions to problem solving, and in young people's skills and agency. Regardless of whether you call it prevention of violent extremism or just part of your core business of running your community. I think the UN and municipal actors have a lot in common, and I think we could do more to share practices and understandings of youth inclusion and meaningful and equal partnerships between institutions and young people across our sectors. So it'll be interesting to listen more to this seminar, and primarily the young people that will speak after me that are active leaders in their communities. So thank you for listening, and looking forward to questions later.